Many people work hard all their lives, yet end up with little to show for it. It's not because they lack effort, it's because they follow the wrong money rules. The poor trade time for survival, the middle class trade time for comfort, but the wealthy, they trade time for assets, freedom, and legacy. The rules are the same for everyone, but only a few have the courage to play the game differently. If you're tired of acting small, if you're ready to think big, act smart, and build wealth that lasts, then listen closely, because what I'm about to share can rewrite the rest of your life. One of the lessons I learned early in life is that money is both powerful and dangerous. It's powerful because it gives you options, it gives you freedom, it gives you leverage to design the kind of life you want. But it's dangerous because if you misunderstand it, it can quickly become your master instead of your servant. Too many people fall into the trap of worshiping money. They start to believe that their worth as a person is tied to the size of their bank account, the brand of their clothes, or the car they drive. That's a losing game, because no matter how much you accumulate, someone will always have more. If money defines you, then you'll forever be chasing it, and you'll never feel rich. I learned this truth the hard way. In my younger years, when I had very little, I thought money was the answer to everything. I thought if I just earned more, all my problems would vanish. But what I discovered is that money only amplifies who you already are. If you're generous, money makes you more generous. If you're careless, money makes you more careless. If you're disciplined, money strengthens your discipline. The key is to establish your character first, and then let money serve that character. Otherwise, you end up serving money, and that road leads to stress, greed, and emptiness. So the real question isn't, how much money do I have? The real question is, what purpose does my money serve? Wealthy people don't let money sit idle, and they don't let it control their emotions. They write a clear money mission statement. They decide in advance. This portion will go to growth, investments, skills, and opportunities that multiply. This portion will go to giving, supporting causes, helping others, creating impact, and this portion will go to living, to enjoy life, to meet needs, to celebrate the journey. That kind of structure puts you in control of money instead of letting it control you. Another trap many people fall into is making emotional decisions with money. They buy out of envy, they invest out of fear, they sell out of panic. That's not mastery, that's slavery. When money dictates your emotions, you're no longer the driver, you're just the passenger. And passengers don't build wealth, drivers do. To avoid this, you must learn to pause. When you feel an impulse to buy something, step back and ask, is this serving my mission or stealing from my future? That question alone can save you thousands over a lifetime. Remember, money is a tool. It can build schools or buy drugs. It can fund a dream or fuel a vice. It can enslave you or set you free. The difference lies not in the money itself, but in the hands that hold it. Respect money for what it can do, but never let it define who you are. The marketplace doesn't reward you for time alone. It rewards you for the value you bring during that time. You can sit at a desk for 8 hours, and someone else can sit at a desk for 8 hours, but one person may earn 10 times more than the other. Why? Because one has developed rare skills, unique insights, or the ability to solve bigger problems. The truth is simple. You don't get paid for your time. You get paid for the value you bring to that time. Early in my life, I worked hard, but my pay stayed small. I kept thinking, if I just work longer, if I just stay later, surely I'll earn more. But I learned the marketplace doesn't pay for hours, it pays for results. That was a big shift for me. The key wasn't to put in more hours, it was to put more into myself. The day I started working harder on myself than on my job, everything changed. Because when you become more, you earn more. So let me ask you, what is your value right now? If you want to double your income, don't demand it, develop for it. Identify one high-value skill that the marketplace respects and pays generously for. It could be communication, sales, leadership, technology, marketing, or negotiation. Whatever it is, pick one and make a decision, I'm going to master this. Not dabble in it, not experiment with it, but master it. Because mastery is what the marketplace rewards. And mastery doesn't come from occasional bursts of effort. It comes from daily disciplines. Spend 30 minutes to an hour every single day sharpening that skill. Read books, listen to audios, take courses, study those who are already the best at it. Don't just consume information, apply it. Practice it in your job, in your business, in your daily life. Every small improvement compounds into big value over time. I'll give you an example from my own life. When I first entered sales, I wasn't very good. I stumbled, I mumbled, I lost more customers than I gained. But instead of quitting, I decided to study. I listened to tapes on selling. I read books on persuasion. I practiced my presentation every night. Soon, I wasn't just selling products, I was selling with confidence, with skill, with results. And as my skill increased, so did my paycheck. Not because the company changed, but because I changed. That's the secret. If you want the marketplace to pay you more, bring it more, add more value, solve bigger problems, refine your skills until you're indispensable. Don't wish for things to get easier. Wish to get better. Don't ask for less problems. Develop more skills. Money will always flow to those who become valuable. So the challenge is clear. Earn more by becoming more. It's easy to get caught in one of two traps. On one side, there are those who dream too small. They set goals that don't stretch them, so they live lives of quiet frustration. On the other side, there are those who dream so big, but they never start, because the vision feels too overwhelming. The truth is, both approaches keep you stuck. The balance is to think big enough to inspire yourself, but start small enough that you can take the first step today. Big goals inspire, small steps achieve. When I was a young man, I sat down and wrote out what I wanted my life to look like in 10 years. I didn't just write, I want to be rich. That's too vague. I wrote specifics. How much money I wanted in the bank, the kind of house I wanted to live in, the experiences I wanted to give my family, the people I wanted to help. I painted a picture so vivid that I could see it, almost touch it. That vision became the fuel. Without a vision, you can't sustain the discipline. But with a vision, even small actions take on meaning. Once you have the vision, the temptation is to rush, to want it all now. But here's what I learned. You don't need to start with a fortune to build a fortune. You start with what you have, right where you are. Maybe it's $5 a day, maybe it's 100. The size doesn't matter as much as the consistency. Small investments, repeated over time, become large returns. The seed may be tiny, but it carries the oak tree inside of it. I remember when I made my first little investments. They weren't impressive. In fact, compared to what I wanted, they looked almost laughable. But every time I put a small amount aside, I reminded myself, this is not about today, it's about tomorrow. This is a seed. And seeds don't grow because you stare at them. They grow because you plant them, water them, and give them time. And here's where the magic happens. Once the small steps start producing results, you don't spend the results, you reinvest them. That's how you scale. That's how small becomes big. You don't dig up the seed to buy something shiny. You let it grow into a tree. and then that tree bears fruit, and you plant more seeds. Compounding is the eighth wonder of the world. It doesn't just work with money, it works with habits, with skills, with disciplines. So, think big. Write down a 10-year vision that excites you so much it gets you out of bed in the morning. Start small. Take the next simple step you can take today, no matter how modest. And then, as results come, reinvest, scale, and multiply. That's how dreams leave the clouds and become castles you can live in. The philosophy is simple. Big goals inspire, small steps achieve. One of the greatest weights a person can carry is the burden of unnecessary debt. I like to say discipline weighs ounces, but regret weighs tons. And nowhere is that truer than with money you owe for things that no longer bring you value. Consumer debt is a trap. It robs your future, steals your peace, and keeps you working for yesterday instead of tomorrow. And the saddest part is that most of it is avoidable if only we'd learned the simple disciplines of patience and planning. When I was starting out, I didn't have much. In fact, there were seasons where I had more month than money. And the temptation was always there to buy things I couldn't afford, just to look like I was further along than I really was. A new car, a fancy gadget, an extra trip, things that gave me a moment of pleasure but a long season of pressure. One day, I realized that every dollar I borrowed for consumption was stealing from my future dreams. I wasn't just borrowing money, I was borrowing time, energy, and opportunity. That was the turning point. Now, there's nothing wrong with debt if it's used as leverage to create more wealth. Borrowing to buy a rental property that generates income, or to expand a business that multiplies profits, that's debt working for you. But borrowing for clothes, furniture, or vacations, that's debt working against you. It's like planting weeds and wondering why you don't get fruit. The difference is whether the debt creates an asset or a liability. That's the test you need to apply before you sign your name to anything. The first step in escaping the debt trap is to eliminate high-interest debt aggressively. Don't just make the minimum payments, make war on it. Every extra dollar you put toward killing that debt is a dollar you free up for your dreams. When I was climbing out of my own financial mess, I treated debt repayment like a non-negotiable bill, just like rent. And every time the balance went down, I felt lighter, freer. That freedom becomes a kind of fuel. You start to realize how much control you can actually take back when you stop giving your future away. Second, discipline yourself to only borrow when it's for something productive, something that pays you back more than it costs you. A tool that generates income, a property that builds equity, a business that produces cash flow. If the purchase doesn't earn, then you're the one being earned, and that's a place you don't want to stay. Finally, don't just get rid of debt. Build a cushion. A 6-month emergency fund is one of the greatest shields you can own. It protects you from panic decisions, from going back into debt when life throws you a surprise, and life always does. With that buffer in place, you buy yourself time, and time is the most valuable asset of all. So the choice is simple. Live with the ounces of discipline today, or carry the tons of regret tomorrow. Let debt be your servant when it builds assets, but never your master when it feeds consumption. One of the biggest mistakes people make when it comes to money is trying to earn before they learn. They want the profits without the preparation, the harvest without the planting. But here's the truth. Wealth doesn't begin with money. It begins with wisdom. If you don't have the right knowledge, even a fortune can slip through your hands. But if you're wise, even a little can grow into a lot. That's why I've always said, formal education can make you a living, but self-education can make you a fortune. When I was a young man, I worked hard, but I didn't understand the rules of the financial game. I made money, but it slipped away because I hadn't yet invested in learning how to manage it, grow it, and protect it. It wasn't until I started devouring books, listening to mentors, and sitting at the feet of people who were already successful that my financial life began to shift. The day I decided to become a student of wealth, not just a worker for wages, was the day my future changed. Think about it. Would you jump into the ocean without learning how to swim? Of course not. Yet so many people jump into investments, businesses, or opportunities without any real preparation. And then they wonder why they drown. The strategy is simple. Invest in your learning before you invest in the markets. Knowledge is leverage, and the more you know, the better your decisions become. A little time spent learning can save you years of pain. So where do you start? Spend at least 30 minutes a day reading about money and success. Read biographies of those who built wealth from nothing. Read about investing, about business, about human behavior. And don't just read for entertainment. Read to change your habits and sharpen your decisions. I used to carry a book with me everywhere I went because I knew that if I kept filling my mind, sooner or later my hands would have more to hold. Another key is to study mentors who have already succeeded in the area you want to master. Success leaves clues, but you have to look for them. Find people who are where you want to be. Listen carefully and model their principles. When I met my mentor, I realized he didn't just make money, he understood money. He taught me that wealth was more about the person you become than the dollars you earn. That lesson was worth more than any paycheck I ever got. But don't stop at just collecting knowledge. Apply it. Every week, put one new idea into action, no matter how small. It could be creating a budget, starting a savings account, trying a new investment strategy, or simply cutting an unnecessary expense. Small applications compound into big results. Knowledge without action is wasted potential, but knowledge applied is power. So don't be in a rush to earn, be in a rush to learn, because once you've built the foundation of wisdom, the wealth will follow, and it will last. One of the greatest temptations in life is to trade tomorrow for today, to sacrifice your future for a moment of comfort, or to impress people who aren't even paying attention. But here's the reality. Appearances don't pay the bills. Appearances don't grow wealth. And appearances certainly don't buy you freedom. Assets do. You see, money spent on image disappears, but money invested in assets multiplies. And the choice we face every day is simple. Will we build a future, or will we spend it? I remember when I first started making a little money, the urge was strong to buy the new suit, the shiny car, the nice watch. And I'll be honest with you, for a time, I gave in to that urge. I wanted to look like I was successful. But here's what I learned. There's a big difference between looking rich and being rich. Looking rich means debt, stress, and dependence. Being rich means ownership, freedom, and peace of mind. I decided I didn't want to just look the part, I wanted to live the part. So I changed my focus. Instead of measuring myself by what I drove or wore, I began measuring myself by what I owned. Net worth became more important than net image. And here's the secret. You can't fool the numbers. A car that depreciates isn't an asset. It's a liability. A closet full of expensive clothes doesn't pay dividends, but a portfolio of stocks does. A big house you can barely afford is a prison, but rental properties can create freedom. That's the strategy. Prioritize ownership over consumption. Every time you earn $1, you have a choice. Spend it to look good or invest it to do good later. I recommend that you allocate at least 20 to 30% of your income into investments. Treat it like a bill that must be paid, a non-negotiable part of your financial life. Over time, those investments will grow and start working harder for you than you ever worked for money. But it's not just about putting money aside, it's about patience. Delay lifestyle upgrades until your assets pay for them. Want a nicer car? Let your dividends or rental income cover the payment. Want a bigger house? Let your business profits buy it, not your salary. This way, luxuries become rewards of wealth, not anchors that hold you back from it. And don't forget to track your net worth every quarter. What gets measured gets improved. Watching your assets grow is far more exciting than buying something new for a temporary thrill. Every time you see that number increase, it reminds you that you're building a foundation of freedom, not just an image. So, here's the choice. You can impress people today and struggle tomorrow, or you can build assets today and live free tomorrow. The applause for appearances fades quickly, but the rewards of assets echo for a lifetime. One of the greatest secrets about wealth is that it doesn't just grow when you keep it, it multiplies when you share it. That may sound unusual at first, because money is measurable. You give $1 away and you have one less. But wealth isn't just money. Wealth is wisdom, discipline, and philosophy. And the moment you begin to share that, something incredible happens. It becomes stronger in you and begins to take root in others. That's how you build not just income, but legacy. I'll never forget when I was struggling in my early years, I had a mentor who took the time to sit with me to explain how money worked, how discipline worked, how to build a future instead of just spending a paycheck. And I often wondered, why would he give me all this knowledge? Why spend hours teaching me when he could have been off building more wealth for himself? Then I realized he wasn't losing anything by teaching me. In fact, by teaching, he was reinforcing his own philosophies and multiplying his impact. His wealth didn't just stay in his bank account. It spread into my life and then through me into the lives of others I would teach later on. That's why I encourage you. Don't just chase wealth for yourself. Teach it. Mentor someone. Take a young person under your wing and show them the basics of money management. Help them avoid the mistakes you made. You don't need a classroom or a big stage to do it. Start in your own family. Start at the dinner table. Share with your children not just what you earned, but how you earned it. Teach them the value of saving, of investing, of giving. Let them see you practice discipline so they learn not by lecture, but by example. And don't stop there. Share with your community. Maybe it's through a small group, maybe through writing, maybe even by creating content online. The form doesn't matter, the principle does. Because every time you share, the ideas sink deeper into your own character. You reinforce your own commitment by teaching others. I've often said, you can't truly master something until you teach it, and money is no different. Now here's the remarkable part. When you spread financial wisdom, you create ripple effects that outlive you. You may teach one person today who goes on to build a business, provide jobs, and support families. That impact traces back to your decision to share. You may inspire a child to grow into a disciplined adult who raises their own children with financial intelligence. That's legacy. That's wealth that multiplies far beyond your lifetime. So don't keep your financial wisdom locked up. Multiply it. Share it. Teach it. Because in the end, the greatest return on your wealth is not the lifestyle you enjoyed, but the lives you improved. It's easy to be dazzled by luxury. The shiny car, the big house, the latest gadget. They have a way of pulling us in. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of your labor. But if all you leave behind is a closet full of fine clothes and a driveway full of expensive cars, then when you're gone, so is your wealth. Luxury dies with you. Legacy, on the other hand, lives far beyond you. The question isn't how much comfort you bought, but how much character, wisdom, and provision you left behind. I remember a man I knew who had incredible success in business. He drove the best cars, owned several vacation homes, and threw parties that impressed everyone in town. But when he passed, very little remained. His wealth was spent on temporary pleasures, his assets scattered, and his children left unprepared. Contrast that with another man I knew who didn't live as lavishly, but he built businesses that continued long after he was gone. He left behind trusts for his family, he invested in education for his grandchildren, and he contributed to causes that still help people today. Which man would you rather be remembered as? That's the choice each of us faces, luxury or legacy. Luxury says, what can I enjoy right now? Legacy asks, what will they enjoy long after I'm gone? One fades quickly, the other compounds for generations. So how do we begin building legacy? First, by setting aside wealth for the future. Don't consume everything you earn. Store some. Create funds that will serve your children and their children. Teach them not only to inherit money, but also the wisdom to manage it. Wealth without wisdom disappears quickly. Wisdom with wealth endures. Second, support causes that outlast your lifetime. Maybe it's education, maybe it's health care, maybe it's opportunities for the poor. When you plant into the soil of humanity, your impact outgrows your lifespan. A building may crumble, but the seeds you plant in people endure. And third, build systems, trusts, or businesses that don't need you to survive. A true business, a true system, is one that operates when you're not there. Imagine leaving behind not just money, but engines of value that continue to produce for your family and community. That's how legacies are written. Luxury is bought with money, but legacy is built with intention. One gives you pleasure, the other gives you immortality. The truth is, no one will remember the brand of your shoes, but they'll remember the foundation you left, the lessons you passed on, the impact you made. So ask yourself every day, am I chasing luxury or am I building legacy? Because the greatest value in life is not what you get, it's what you become, and more importantly, what you leave. If there's one principle that separates those who grow wealthy from those who stay broke, it's this: they know exactly where their money is going. Most people don't. They earn it, they spend it, and at the end of the month, they wonder where it all disappeared. But let me tell you, money has a way of slipping quietly out the back door when you're not paying attention. And if you don't keep track of it, it'll always be gone before you know it. The rule is simple. What gets measured gets improved. I'll never forget a conversation I had with a young man early in my career. He told me, I just don't make enough to save. So I asked him, do you keep a record of where your money goes? He said, no, but I know I spend it wisely. I told him, that's the problem. If you don't write it down, you don't really know. You're guessing. And wealth is not built on guesses, it's built on clarity. A few weeks later, he started keeping a notebook, writing down every dollar he spent. Within 1 month, he discovered he was spending nearly $150 a month on things he couldn't even remember. That $150 became his first investment fund, and years later, he thanked me because that habit changed his financial destiny. Tracking your money is not about being stingy, it's about being wise. You can't control what you don't measure. Just like a business has books and records, you need books and records. Think of yourself as the CEO of your own financial life. A business that doesn't keep track goes bankrupt, and a life that doesn't keep track often ends up broke. Here's the strategy. Keep a monthly budget. Not a fancy one, just a simple plan that says, here's what's coming in and here's where it's going. Review your expenses every week, not every year. A year is too late to fix mistakes. Every week, look back and ask, did this expense bring me closer to my goals, or did it take me further away? And here's a powerful little practice. Every month, eliminate at least one wasteful habit. Maybe it's the subscription you forgot about. Maybe it's fast food you don't need. Maybe it's late fees from not paying bills on time. Every wasted dollar is a seed that could have been planted in your future. Wealth doesn't come from earning more alone. It comes from keeping more of what you earn and directing it wisely. Think of your money as soldiers. If you don't give them orders, they'll wander off and never come back. But if you command them, they'll march out and bring reinforcements. So track every dollar, respect it, measure it, and tell it where to go. Because the person who tracks money controls it, and the one who controls it builds wealth. It's not what you make that matters most, it's what you keep. You can make a fortune and lose it overnight if you don't learn how to protect it. I've met people who earned incredible sums of money, far more than I ever did in my early years. But because they didn't safeguard it, because they didn't put walls around their wealth, they ended up broke and starting over again. And the truth is, wealth without protection is like building a castle on sand. It looks impressive for a moment, but one strong wave can wash it away. Think about it this way. If you had a golden goose, would you let it wander around unguarded? Of course not. You'd build a fence, you'd put a lock on the gate, you'd make sure no harm could come to it. But many people treat their income, their health, their assets as if they'll always be there, untouched, invincible. And then life shows up with a storm, an illness, a downturn, a lawsuit, or an unexpected crisis, and suddenly the goose is gone. That's why protecting what you have is more important than chasing the next dollar. I remember when I first started making good money, I was so focused on growth that I didn't think much about risk. A mentor pulled me aside and said, "Don't get so busy making money that you forget to insure the foundation. If one disaster can wipe you out, you're not building wealth, you're gambling." That hit me hard. From that moment on, I began putting systems in place. Not exciting, not flashy, but essential. And those safeguards saved me more than once. Here's the strategy. First, insure your income, your health, and your assets. A medical emergency can wipe out years of savings if you're not prepared. Disability can erase your earning power in a heartbeat. Insurance may not feel glamorous, but it's the safety net that keeps your dreams alive. Second, diversify. Don't put everything you own into one basket. Spread your wealth across asset classes, stocks, real estate, businesses, even cash reserves. One sector may fall, but if you're diversified, you won't fall with it. Think of it as planting different crops in different fields. If one fails, you still have food on the table. Third, keep an emergency reserve, a cushion of 3 to 6 months of living expenses, untouched, waiting quietly in the background. That reserve is not for vacations or shopping sprees, it's for when life suddenly turns upside down. Because here's the truth, storms always come. You can't predict them, but you can prepare for them. Wealth is not about taking reckless risks. It's about building something that lasts. Protect it before you grow it. Because if you guard the foundation, you'll always have something to build upon. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned about money is this: don't eat the seed, plant it. Too many people harvest a little crop, get a little bonus, make a little profit, and the first thought is, how do I spend it? They see it as a reward for their labor, when in truth it's only the beginning of something bigger. The wise don't consume the harvest, they recycle it. They understand that profits are not just for spending, they're for planting again, for letting money begin to work for you. When I was younger, I remember making a little money for the first time in sales. My instinct was to celebrate, to buy something shiny, something that told the world, look, I've arrived. But then a mentor told me, don't celebrate too soon. That profit is not the destination, it's the seed for your future harvest. That shifted everything for me. I began to look at every dollar of profit not as a prize, but as a worker. And if you send your workers out into the field to multiply, they'll come back with friends. But if you consume them all, they're gone and the field is empty. The strategy is simple but powerful. Reinvest every gain. If your stocks pay a dividend, don't spend it, reinvest it. If your rental property produces cash flow, don't use it for a new car, use it to buy another property. If your business produces a profit, resist the urge to drain it. Feed it back in so it grows stronger. The wealthy understand this principle. Their luxuries are bought only when their reinvestments produce enough fruit to cover them. That's the difference between consuming wealth and multiplying it. Here's how you can practice it. First, create a rule that every profit has a job to grow. Whether it's $10 or $10,000, assign it back into your wealth-building system. Don't let idle money sit around waiting to be consumed. Second, make reinvestment automatic. Increase your contributions each year, even if it's just by 5 or 10%. That habit compounds over time in ways that will astonish you. Third, delay luxury until your reinvestments can pay for them. If you want a new car, let your assets buy it. If you want a bigger house, let your investments cover the payment. That way, luxuries never shrink your wealth, they only confirm it. Let me tell you, there's a world of difference between the person who reinvests their profits and the one who spends them. One ends up living in cycles of feast and famine. The other ends up with wealth that produces wealth. It takes discipline, yes. It takes patience, yes. But if you can see profits as seed, and you keep planting instead of consuming, eventually you'll reap a harvest that doesn't just feed you for a day, it will sustain you for a lifetime. Most people love to study success. They want to read the biographies of the wealthy, listen to their stories, watch how they walk and talk. And that's good. Success does leave clues. But let me tell you something just as important. Failure leaves clues too. And sometimes those clues are even more valuable. Success whispers, failure shouts. If you only study the winners, you'll miss half the picture. If you only chase what worked, you may blindly step into the same holes others already fell into. When I was starting out, I didn't just ask my successful mentors, what did you do right? I also asked, what would you never do again? And the answers they gave me were some of the most profitable lessons of my life. They told me about the investments they rushed into without understanding. They told me about the partnerships built on excitement instead of trust. They told me about the times they let greed overrule discipline. Each of those stories was a map with the danger zones circled in red, warning me where not to go. The strategy is simple. Study failure as carefully as you study success. If you made a mistake, don't bury it under the rug. Don't excuse it away. Write it down. Dissect it. Understand it. Keep a journal of financial lessons. Not just victories, but defeats. Because if you only record the wins, you'll forget the price of the losses. And those who forget the cost are doomed to pay it again. I remember one particular business venture I got into early in my career. It looked exciting. The promise was fast growth, big returns, almost too good to be true. And of course, it was. I invested without proper due diligence. And I lost. It stung. But instead of just saying, well, bad luck, I asked myself, what did I miss? What blind spot did I ignore? That reflection became part of my journal. The lesson was clear. Never invest in something I don't fully understand. That failure, though costly at the time, saved me from losing far more later. Here's how you can apply this. Start by analyzing every mistake. Whether it's an investment that went sour, an expense you regret, or a financial habit that cost you. Don't just move on, study it. Second, learn from others' failures. You don't have to touch every stove to know it's hot. Read not only about millionaires, but also about bankruptcies. Study why companies collapse, why people lose fortunes, and why investors panic. Those lessons are just as valuable as the victories. And third, make a vow never to repeat the same mistake twice. New mistakes you can learn from. Old mistakes repeated, that's negligence. Success builds wealth, but failure preserves it. If you let failure be your teacher, you'll walk with more caution, more wisdom, and more strength. Remember, you don't just grow by copying what worked, you grow by avoiding what destroys. One of the greatest mistakes people make in the pursuit of wealth is believing that it has to be complicated. They chase after complicated systems, exotic strategies, and fancy terms they don't even understand, thinking that complexity must mean intelligence. But let me tell you something, complexity is the enemy of execution. It's not the person who knows the most complicated formula who wins. It's the one who can take simple habits, repeat them consistently, and let time and discipline do their work. In my own journey, I discovered that wealth doesn't come from doing 500 things once. It comes from doing 5 things thousands of times. People often ask me, what's the secret to success? And I would say, it's not a secret, it's simple things done consistently. Save consistently. Invest consistently. Learn consistently. That's it. But the mind resists simplicity because it craves excitement. That's why people jump from one scheme to another, always chasing complexity. And that's why most never see the rewards. They don't stick around long enough for the simple things to multiply. The strategy here is to build simple, repeatable systems around your money and your habits. Automate what you can. When your paycheck arrives, don't wait until the end of the month to see what's left over for saving. No, take a percentage and move it automatically before you ever see it. Treat it like rent, non-negotiable. That one simple system can make the difference between financial chaos and financial freedom. The same applies to investing. Some people want to chase 10 different markets, study 100 stocks, dabble in every new trend. But here's what I've learned. The wealthy aren't scattered, they're focused. They pick a handful of vehicles they understand, real estate, a stock index, a business, and they build expertise in those areas. They don't need 100 plays. They need a few good plays, run again and again. That's where wealth compounds, through focus, not fragmentation. I remember a young man I was mentoring who told me he was overwhelmed by financial advice. Every book, every podcast, every video seemed to tell him something different. He was paralyzed by options. I told him, you don't need 50 rules. You need a handful of disciplines. We simplified his approach. Save 20% of his income automatically, invest in 1 or 2 proven funds, and review his progress every 3 months. Within a year, not only was his money growing, but his stress was shrinking. Simplicity gave him clarity, and clarity gave him confidence. Now, simplicity doesn't mean laziness. It doesn't mean you stop learning or ignore opportunities. It means you build your foundation on habits so clear, so repeatable, that they run almost on autopilot. Then, with that strong base, you can expand wisely. Complexity confuses, but simplicity multiplies. So remember, don't overcomplicate your wealth plan. Build a few strong, simple systems. Run them with consistency, and let time do its work. Ladies and gentlemen, wealth is not a mystery, it's a discipline. It's not reserved for the lucky few, but for those who dare to think differently, act intentionally, and stay consistent over time. Money, after all, is only a reflection of who we become. If we become disciplined, money follows discipline. If we become valuable, money follows value. If we become wise, money follows wisdom. The rules are simple, but they require courage to follow. So I challenge you today. Respect your time, respect your money, and respect yourself enough to build a future greater than your present. Start small, but start now. Build assets, not excuses. Trade your distractions for disciplines, your short-term pleasures for long-term freedom. Teach what you learn so your wealth multiplies, not just in your bank account, but in the lives you touch. Don't leave here today inspired but unchanged. Leave with a decision to track your money, to invest in your growth, to create value, and to build a legacy that outlives you. Wealth is built step by step, brick by brick, day by day. And the best time to begin laying that foundation is today. Take action now.